things. It's weird.
We're inside the Capitol, yeah. The floor is still about the health and the
Good
agency.
evening, everybody.
Yes.
This is Mohammed Ibrahim with the coalition demanding justice for George
I don't know.
Floyd
They're
and
on their
also
way.
Kennedy. And as we are learning today that a deal appears to be made for the public safety omnibus. And there's a press release that was being issued by Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, that says that they are still resolving some minor issues but have reached a
We're live
bipartisan
now.
agreement with the Senate that both fully funds public safety and the judiciary and includes reforms to address racial disparities, a criminal justice system. And it says that it doesn't include some of the important policy reforms and accountability measures pushed by the House, but is a step towards delivering true public safety and justice for all Minnesotans. And we were here to get reaction from coalition members. We have Michelle Gross, we have Tashira Garraway, Jelana Hussein, Jonathan McClellan, as well as potentially some legislators as well. And we just want to get some live reactions. We know Jelani's in the middle of the state capitol right now in St. Paul. But to begin, kind of, Tashira, if you want to kind of let us know about the conversations that were happening today and kind of your initial reactions.
The conversations today are basically the fact that the governor met with our coalition today and let us know that basically they came up with an agreement on some bills to get passed. But it holds no bills. Uh, they're doing everything in their power to make sure that officers are against the community and against our families, bottom of the barrel, and as bills the families. At the same time, it doesn't hold anyone accountable, and or else when everyone is not held for their continues, that means that the murders. That means if the murders continue, we could possibly be in this that we were in when George Floyd got gained enough and enough um gut while he urinated on himself and pleaded for his mother because Derek Chauvin had been allowed to kill many more people before he got to George Floyd the same way that George Floyd is the face of hundreds of murders here in the state of Minnesota. Uh, uh, that have been covered up go on without justice is the same way that Derek Chauvin is the face of he's the face of hundreds of murder murderers.
Tashir, we're having a hard time hearing your audio's cutting out a bit. Yeah, your audio is really cutting out a bit, and we're having a hard time hearing you. Jaylani, do you want to tell us a little bit about? I think you're at the Capitol right now. If you want to kind of give us an update on where you are.
Yes, so we have people gathering now. As you probably all heard, they just announced this deal, and we were trying to find out more information. And they just announced this deal that they have bipartisan deal. What bipartisan deal means is that it's moving forward. But what we also know is that they did not really pass any meaningful legislation. And so I guess I'm not surprised. We're not surprised. This is Minnesota, as Emmett Till's cousin would say. This is Mississippi. So nothing surprising, but also we got to pay attention. So if you're up tonight, you're not doing anything, you should come out. This justice for George Floyd is not just a flyer. We need policies. We need policies. We need transformation. And these policies are not going to end everything. We know that. But if we can't even get these, where do we start? There's someone else in our community who will be killed by police before we know it. And it's because we fail to act. And the Senate Republicans always get their way because they know how to play the game of politics. The Democrats also know how to play the game of politics, but they also know that there is no consequences to their failure, because the poor and minorities who usually vote Democrat, their issues get to the back of the burner. So no justice, no peace. I mean, we need to fight. We need to demand justice. And they had an entire year to pass police accountability. On this special session, they made a deal. We still don't know what's fully the package of the deal, how much they watered down even the few bills that they have in there. We know this is literally what has been happening across this country, but particularly here in Minnesota. They really don't care. They don't care. It's not important. Police can't be held accountable, and just like we got a mediocre sentence yesterday, this is not even mediocre. The police accountability bills that they're passing, what happened, this is not even mediocre. Judge Cahill probably has more courage, even though we all know that he could have went 30 on him, than these legislators. And so, I'm not surprised also because most of these legislators have been in office before George Floyd was killed. And so they never prioritize Black lives, and they never really prioritize holding police accountable. So I am not surprised. This is an important issue for many families and communities. So I need people to come out if you can, just not tonight, but in the next couple of days as we plan to respond to this, again, failure and denial of the families. The families have been fighting for policy changes. The community has been fighting for policy changes. And it is absolutely incredibly disappointing, but disappointment that is not surprising. I would say disappointment and not a surprise. So, we're out here right now. I have my megaphone. We're not gonna go anywhere in the next at least an hour, a couple hours. So they're gonna be coming out one of these doors, hopefully, and we're gonna call them shame. So we need people to come out here and rig the protest here if you can make it. This is when they make the deals, y'all. They don't make it when we're all up. They don't make it when it's nice and convenient and we can plan around. They make the deals in the middle of the night, knowing that the majority of the state is either busy or um, lubricated or intoxicated to some extent, and they know that they can make these deals like that. So, and there is no consequence. And unfortunately, there hasn't been any consequences for failure. You add you do the same thing over and over. So I'll stop there, but I'll just encourage everybody to show up. I just want to again appreciate all the hard work that has been done by our coalition partners as well as everyone else who's been doing this work. And we're not surprised at all, not surprised at all. Um, but I'm telling you, we didn't believe that this was only going to happen with this legislation and with this body. We knew it's not going to happen. So um, it is part of the system that has failed us, and it is going to be among those things that many people will wake up to probably Monday and realize that nothing got done. But just like many people who are mediocre, happy with something in writing, just know that all of the bills that probably will pass are all watered down anyways. They've been trying to water them down. And I think, hats off to Gazelka and Warren Limmer for protecting police. I think they deserve to be praised for their failure. No, actually their success. Gazelka and Warren Limmer did what they had to do. They protected police officers. Tonight, police officers across the state are celebrating because Warren Limmer and Senator Gazelka are the governor and the lieutenant governor of the state of Minnesota when it comes to these issues, because they make the decisions. And it's sad. It's sad. It's sad. And we know our government, particularly here in the United States, is under attack, not only from domestic but also foreign. We also know, and I'm being honest, like there are Russians who are trying to find every wedge in our community and use those wedges to create extreme people in both sides of the movement. We know that. But when rational, sensible, common sense, not even extreme policies are denied about police accountability, where police officers themselves even support these policies to some extent, I would just say that it's a sad day in Minnesota, but another day that I think is normal day for many brown and black people. And I'm really disappointed to many of the families who have poured out their heart this past year, re-traumatized every time they told their story, and have been out here. But we're not going anywhere. Tonight is just an affirmation that our work is important every day, but it's even more important tonight. So thank you for those who are watching and those who can come out here and hold some space. Please welcome to do that.
And Michelle, can we go ahead and get your reaction on, the passage of this public safety omnibus bill, and I'm sure you share, all of our frustrations as you proposed, some of these bills as well, and kind of what is your initial reactions to all of this?
Well, first of all, I just want to go back for a second and give people a little education so they know what we're talking about. So as you know, we've been trying to get a series of bills passed. We had 9 bills. One of them never even got jacketed or introduced into the legislature. And but 8 of them did. And and we've been fighting for these bills this whole session, and some of them would, for example, make the body camera footage available to families of people that have been killed within 48 hours. We have other bills that would end qualified immunity, require police to carry professional liability insurance of their own, require 911 calls to be given for mental health crises to be given to mental health crisis response units. Just a whole set of things, but a really important one was to end the statute of limitations for wrongful deaths by police and give a 5-year look back period so that people whose cases were past that statute of limitations would still be able to do a lawsuit. And so we've been pushing for this whole set of 8 bills this whole time. And the legislature, they'll let you run yourself to death. First, we were told you got to get a lot of people to email. Okay, so we got 100,000 emails to the legislature. Then they said, we need outstate support. So we went and got 65,000 signatures on a petition from people that live outstate and turned that over to the governor. Then there was, you need to get corporate sponsorship and support. So we lined up 80 corporations to sign on to our bills. We just kept doing all of this stuff. And it was just a lot of making people jump through hoops. I don't think there's ever been people ever having to do as much to try to get a bill across the finish line in the legislature. Then today we get a phone call from the governor's office telling us, well, I tried so hard to get your bills through, and I just couldn't get the senators to, the Republican senators to go along with it, and they just wouldn't do it. But what we really found out later was that Walz, Gazelka, and Melissa Hortman, the chair, basically, the Speaker of the House, the three of them got in a room and basically hashed out this deal and basically tossed out most of our stuff. And so it's really disgusting, really reprehensible. They will let you work your behind off for months. And basically, at the end, it's like, well, the Republicans just won't let us do it. So the Democrats control the governor's office and they control the House. But somehow the third leg of the stool gets to call the shots, which is kind of ridiculous. Now, some people are saying, and I think rightly so, that we shouldn't be putting faith into politicians. I don't have any faith in politicians. Let's be clear about that. I don't think anybody else on this call is naive about that at all. What I do think is that, unfortunately, they're the ones that pass the bills. So we do have to, when we have a bill that has to, when we have something that has to be a state statute because it can't be anything else, we can't make it happen unless it is, then we have no choice to go to these people, but to go to these people. But, somebody put in the chat that that the Democrats are not our friends, and it's very, very true. They will, pretend to be your friends. The difference is the Republicans will just tell you to go screw yourself, right in your face, right? The Democrats will milk you along, with all of this nonsense, oh, yes, we have empathy, blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, they're making deals to stick it to you. So, we're clear about that. I don't think any of us on this live stream have any illusions about that. But what we're doing is we're trying to do some last minute things to try to salvage what we can. And we certainly want to make sure that at least some of these bills make it across the finish line. One of the bills, for example, is the Hardell-Sherrill Act. And Hardell-Sherrill Act is a bill that would bring significant reforms to the jails. We have had 54 people die in county jails in this state in the last 5 years. That's atrocious. They basically, we've got to stop people from dying. And these are young people who went in healthy and came out in a body bag. So it's good that bill got passed. We have the 911 bill that's going to require the 911 centers to send mental health crisis workers and not police to these mental health crisis calls. This is a lifesaver. We had 5 people who died in a 3.5 week period between Thanksgiving and Christmas in 2018. 5 people who were having mental health crises who were killed by police in that 3-week period. And so we do need to have these bills passed. But the bottom line is that this stuff is these bills that matter to people always become fodder for bargaining, and they become bargaining chips for the Democrats to get other stuff they want and for the Republicans to get other stuff they want. And it's really a pox on both houses as far as I'm concerned. It's just like that. And they always use this, they'll use our stuff to try to bargain for stuff that they really want, like, tax cuts for their rich buddies or whatever, all of this type of stuff. So I'm pretty disgusted. I never had a lot of faith in the system in the first place, but we do have to push for these damn bills, because without these bills, people die. And so that's not, it's hard to have faith. It's hard to even, and I don't have faith, but it's hard to make yourself keep working at this system. But we do have to get some of these things across the finish line so that we can save people's lives. And this is serious business here. So anyway, maybe Jonathan, you want to throw on some things too.
Yeah, I'll just say that what happened tonight was a political calculation, not an accountability from the governor's office. when this all started, the governor sat down with the families and myself and asked that bills be brought to him. He looked me in my eye and said, bring some bills to me to sign. And then when we brought the bills, he was perplexed that we followed through and brought the legislation. And then he went into a high stakes game of chicken with the Republicans, and he became the chicken at the last minute, and with his press conference, and he carried us along the way. So the bills that they were able to get passed was regulating the use of no-knock warrants, which is a watered-down version of the original language, civil asset forfeiture reforms, grant funding for community violence prevention and survivor support, and sex trafficking prevention and response, modifications to post board police misconduct database created to create an early warning system, creating an office of missing and murdered Indigenous women, creating a task force for missing and murdered African American women, Travis's Law, Matthew's Law, a model policy addressing the use of confidential informants, funding increases for public defenders and legal aid, the Hardell-Sherrill Act, criminal sexual conduct reform, and investments in cybersecurity and creating a youth justice office. What wasn't included in that was any police accountability reform to hold the officers accountable and remove the barriers that police officers tend to hide behind when they break the law. And that's what they've done, and that's what the governor has rubber stamped, as well as various leaders in the conference committees. So I'm very discouraged. I'm very upset with where we're at, and I think that we have to keep on fighting and to try to get this police accountability legislation, because the sad truth of where we're at is that we will be back here again, and there will be somebody else that will lose their life because these policies have not been put in place. They came out with an article today, Time did, with about Terrence Franklin, that indicated, after all these years, they're still finding information and things like that, and which justifies why we need a legislation like the statute limit, removing the statute of limitations on wrongful death. And that's something that was common when I listened to all the stories of the families. Something that I heard, which was why I wrote that. And during the conversations that we've had with political leaders, they would always want to talk about that bill, and they would give us the appearance that they were all for it. And at the last minute, or matter of fact, even before the last minute, we heard that they never even talked about it behind the scenes. So they're playing games. The governor's playing games, and I'm sorry, they're full of shit.
Yeah, and they're playing games. They're playing games with our families. They're playing games with our families' lives. Um, you know, like it was mentioned, like Michelle mentioned earlier, these people, these legislators, the governor, all of these guys look the rest of the families in the face and make us believe that they're going to be fighting to hold these officers accountable. And when it's time to pass bills, to pass legislation, to change the rules that have not held them accountable, that created the environment for a Derek Chauvin to exist, when it's time to do that, that's not what's happening. They're giving the bills that are attached to family names because they know that's a vulnerable thing. Of course, anybody would want their loved one's name that's attached to a bill to get through. But we also need accountability. We need the people who have murdered our loved ones to be held accountable. We need the people who have stolen the people that we love from us to have their day in court. We need to be able to give answers to our children. And the only way to do that is to be able to bring forth your case. And removing the statute of limitation for wrongful death gives our families that opportunity. They don't want us to have that opportunity. Legislators like Warren Limmer, who is a former cop, who is, I believe deep down in my heart, a white supremacist that is, he's possibly got blood on his hands. He's been in the legislation for the last 20 years when a lot of these murders happened. He was a former cop, and of course, he doesn't want something like the statute of limitation for wrongful death to get passed. If you were a cop and you know that people from the past can come forward and bring forth a case, of course you're not going to be okay with that, because he possibly has blood on his hands as well. So we know exactly what it is. We got to call it out for what it is. And these are people that are living, Paul Gazelka and Warren Limmer, who live out in Maple Grove, Minnesota. They haven't lost anybody, and they just don't give a crap. And then they're former cops themselves. And so what we have to do from here on out, because I'm thinking of plans of action that I'm ready to take against these people that I know was the problem, that I know didn't want to see police be held accountable because they're a part of that system. People like Warren Limmer, we got to protest him. We got to go out there to his house, and we got to get behind people like Bonnie Westland, who is running for his seat, and get him out of that seat, because he needs to be removed immediately. And anybody else that wants to be a part of this, going along with the program, they shouldn't even be passing this omnibus bill right now without police accountability. The reason we're in this situation is because what happened to George Floyd is because a man didn't get held accountable for killing 3 or 4 other people, and he felt entitled enough to kill a man in broad daylight as he urinated on himself and pleaded for his mother. Why? Because he was not held accountable prior to that. So there should not even be anything going forward right now without a police accountability bill included, like the statute of limitation for wrongful death.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, you said something that I think is really, really key here. You were talking about how the legislature, what they decided to do in a really callous way is to put up the bills that had family members' names on them, like, the Travis's bill and the Hardell-Schroll Act and things like that, because they knew that if we said, give us all our bills or give us nothing, that we would be hurting those people. And so it was a real trickery that they tried to do all this stuff, and that kind of thing. There is one family bill that they did not put up, and that is the Kobe Heisler bill. And that's a bill that would require police to or law enforcement agencies to turn over body camera footage in police critical incidents within 48 hours to the families. And man, that was like one of the bills that the cops really put up a fight about. You see, they don't mind having body cameras when it means more money for their programs and whatnot. And so one of the bills that got put in this thing was a bill for more money for body cameras for these clowns. But yet the community cannot have any access to those body cameras, and not even the families that are affected. Because first they were saying, we said 48 hours unredacted. They were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the BCA was talking about like the sky's going to fall and all this stuff like that. And, saying we need 90 days and all this crap and the 30 days and all this. It's like, you don't need that. When video you believe fits your narrative, or you can manipulate it to fit your narrative, you release that sucker the same day if you can, by the next day for sure. You don't need any 48 hours. How about you release all the videos? And they were like, oh gosh, we can't have those go to the public. Well, the family is not the public. The family is the affected party. They are, under the law, considered to be the subjects of the data under the Data Practices Act. And so they absolutely can do this. And so I just want to make sure that people understand that that this is a whole lot of trickery that they engage in to keep basically keep us from being able to have access to information. If you look at this thing that's coming out now about the Terrence Franklin case, it is all about the major cover-up that the police have engaged in and have sat on top of for years and years. And that is what we deal with in this legislature when they do not want to pass these bills. They are trying to allow these cops to continue to engage these cover-ups. It is sickening.
Right.
And the reason they didn't pass that one bill, because that was a police accountability bill, being able to see what happened to your loved one, what happened to an individual during a police murder, that's accountability. And that's why it didn't get through, because that was the only one that held a name, that had a name attached to it, that was a police accountability. And by all means, they're trying to avoid police being held accountable. So what's going to happen is that we're going to be back in a situation like George Floyd, because now they might find a little slicker way to do it because they know everybody's watching now. But we're going to be back in this boat because the killings are not going to stop. Anytime that a person doesn't get held accountable for their actions continue no matter what. So being that the murders are going to continue, then we'll be back in this boat until police accountability laws pass.
And if I can just inject, that the Kobe Heisler bill that would require body camera footage released to the family within 48 hours. It took Kobe Heisler's mother over 8 months to receive that video, to even be able to view it. Tashira, who's been fighting since 2009 to figure out what's happened to her fiance, we're still waiting on information for that case. And we're finding out that they've been hiding information, that they release some information and then say that the information doesn't exist. And then we come to find out, years later, that yes, the information did exist. And in the meantime, the statute of limitations has ran while they're holding on to all the cards. So the legislation that we put forward was very, very basic, very and would do the job and and provide the accountability that was necessary into holding killer cops accountable. And this is what they fought back against. Very common sense bills that had a very specific mission to hold police officers accountable. Disgusting.
And to be honest with you all, this is beholden to Democrats that uphold the status quo. There's been a lot of attempts and a lot of opportunities to actually get these things, across the finish line. Well, we kept on hearing excuses that were really Republican talking points being told to our legislators, told to ourselves, right? We had conversations about even when the qualified immunity bill was, brought to the table, that they didn't have enough votes, and that, Republicans did not want to, negotiate. But we keep on talking about what Republicans are willing to negotiate instead of what we are able to do. What are we willing to do? And I want to go ahead and welcome Representative Thompson, who's on the call, that can, not only react to this, but kind of share some of his insight in terms of, the failure that we are witnessing right in front of us in this moment.
Man, these people are celebrating behind the scenes. Like, we should be happy with some of the good stuff that we got, right? The governor had $500 million. We asked for $20 million just to do some community work, just to do like community mediation, mentoring, some of the youth, to try to stop some of the gun violence in our communities, right? And to also ask for more money, eliminate the need for so much public safety and policing in our communities, right? And we were told no. We were told no. Actually, the governor said when the American Rescue Funds came in that he would use that money, right? And we asked for $20 million for that fine, which was 2%, and he said no. right? But he asked us to vote for $9 million when the state troopers were running out of money and they couldn't afford to pay their payroll. And he would definitely revisit all of our stuff and put that on the table. Now behind the scenes, they're like, well, the GOP was just being nasty. The GOP didn't want to bargain. The GOP, but you bargained with yourself then, is what I'm saying. You negotiated with yourself as a caucus. And so right now it's like we should be happy. I'm just texting them like mediocrity is not something to celebrate. Because at the end of the day, like you can sugarcoat a piece of shit and call it candy, but when you suck that sugar coat off of it, guess what you taste in your mouth? You know, and I'm very disappointed. You know, this wasn't a bipartisan agreement. These were three motherfuckers. I'm so sorry, bro. These were three people who like went in, negotiated, shook hands, and said, "This is what we gonna get the people." I don't like the way they pulled Delshare Perry and Kobe Heisler and those parents in, because now that pits us, everybody else against those guys. Like we gave them this now, so we say this is a fucked up bill. I'm sorry again, but excuse my brash delivery. But if we say this is a messed up bill, now it's like you're going against Hardell Sherrill and Kobe Heisler. And that's how the governor and their staff work this, man. Like they divide and conquer, the typical white people's tactics. And I don't care that I'm a legislator. I'm sick and tired of it. And so I'm for sure that organizing to get some of these people that are in leadership up out of these seats is necessary, because we settle. Like we have the majority in the House. So that's enough power to shut it down until we get something meaningful. We can have a stalemate, but they refuse to have a stalemate. Like I understand that people are gonna lose their EBT benefits and the parks and recs are gonna close. But damn, we're gonna be invited to another Al Sharpton and Ben Crump funeral extravaganza this summer. In a few days, maybe, about one of these serial killers in our state police, in our police departments across the state. It don't matter which sundown town it is. Somebody somewhere in one of these doggone cities is gonna kill another black man just to celebrate this victory. That's exactly what they're gonna show us. And then what's gonna wind up happening is we're gonna show up in protest, and they're gonna send them same people outside to treat us like, how dare you protest against my brother? As seen when we were over there by Target. When people were standing outside that police station post George Floyd, the police kicked the riots off, shooting those gas canisters and the tear gas. And it was almost like, how dare you Negroes come out here and protest my brother? So I'm disappointed, and I'm not voting for this bill. And I would advise y'all, man, to show up Monday or Tuesday when this bill hits the floor and express the same, and feel the rotunda and express the same outrage, because they don't care about us, man. And let me just share this. Okay, so you didn't want to give us nothing on police reform, but you want to talk about how unsafe our cities are, right? And so we asked for money we asked for a Teachers of Colors Act. We asked for culturally intelligent tutors and mentors and funding for that. Nope. We can't get none of that. We asked for like things that we know, investments in our community, like jobs, training, to get some of these kids that are doing the crime into a career pathway. Nope. This GOP just today threatened to shut this state down if they didn't pass that bill for the oil refineries, right? They threatened to shut it down. That's what they were threatening to shut the state down on. And we buckled. We gave them that. We gave them what they asked for the refineries, and rural Minnesota got everything they wanted. Our issues don't really matter, and I'm gonna say it like boldly. Apparently, it don't matter to nobody in this body, because we're in the majority right now, and we could take a stand as a majority in the House. We could all say, no, we don't want this watered down bullshit. This is pretty much the same thing they gave us post George Floyd on Juneteenth, when the Republican Senate walked out and said, we're not hearing police reform. Let's be clear, y'all, and I don't want to take up all y'all show. Let's be clear. The Senate gave us no hearings the entire session on any of the police reform measures that we proposed. They gave us 0 hearings. They showed up in negotiations after giving us 0 hearings and said no to every provision that we set forth. They said no, 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 right? And so our body goes back in and said, well, let's take this away, and take this away, and see what they say. They said no, no, no to that. They said, well, let's take this away, this away, this away. They said no, no, no to that. So they had the Democrats negotiating against themselves. You know, they set a line in the sand as to where they stand on police reform measures. And so when they show up to negotiation, they don't have nothing to negotiate other than we're not giving y'all shit. And so here we are, man. They negotiated with themselves and got pretty much the same thing we got the last go around. When they try to tout the at least we got no chokehold. That's a no fucking brainer. Y'all should be choking people in the first place. At least we got this. No, I'm tired of at least we got this because they keep killing us. And what's happening here, y'all, is these people are like, they're talking about public safety with their filibustering and the crime in our communities, right? As a need to, this is why we need more policing. Somehow, some way, they always figure out a way to fund more policing, and they're going to take that American Rescue money and fund more policing also. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I know that was a lot, and I have a lot more to say, man, but I'm just pissed off, man. My legs are bad, man, so I'm in the bed.
No, and Rena Moran wants to tell us about the budget, or they keep talking about the budget and money, and you know what, they want to talk about us holding. We asked, could this omnibus bill be held because the language in it is not right, and we get told about, oh, the budget, people are going to get hurt. People are dying in the street. I understand the money. I understand people need their benefits and all this stuff. But at the same time, it is dead people. It is people that are dying in the streets. We are in the middle of a cover-up with the BCA for the Winston Smith murder. They have gotten to the point where since it didn't get caught Facebook Live, so what they're going to do is just tell us, you know what, there was no videos at all. We're just going to lie in your face. We're going to cover it up in your face. And we're going to tell you in Uptown, one of the richest places in the Twin Cities, the Uptown area, had no cameras. All those businesses out there had no cameras. So we're in the middle of a cover-up. They know what they're doing. They're doing it in our faces. They're not sugarcoating it. They're just doing it, and they're moving on. Warren Limmer is a white man that is privileged. I believe deep down in my heart, he's a white supremacist. He doesn't care. This doesn't affect, they don't give money to the community because it doesn't affect their children. It doesn't affect their families. They don't pass police accountability bills because the police do protect them and their families. But in the inner city, they brutalize our families and our children and our significant others. And so we know what they're doing. It's being done in our faces. We got to get over there to that Capitol. I'm not about to stay quiet about this. They didn't pass the statute of limitation for wrongful death. They murdered the father of my child. They held open the case. They illegally held on to evidence that needed to be released. And I'm not going to be quiet about that because I got to be able to give my son answers. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I get a fair day in court. My child gets a fair day in court. And the rest of these families, Jeffrey Smith's mother, all the rest of these people who ran past their statute of limitation, they deserve this. And until we get it, we're never going to be happy with this. I'm not happy with it, and they're going to know we're not happy with it. We're not going to be quiet about it, and we're just going to just keep ramming on their doors, blowing up their phones, doing whatever they got to do till they do what's right for the people in the communities that are hurting.
Just to interrupt you, Tashira, the police came. The police came already, so they're trying to let us know we can't be here As you can
Hey,
see,
you
they
know,
brought in
after Dante Wright was murdered,
they brought the police.
right?
They brought the police.
The
There they go.
sheriff's department in Hennepin
They're letting
County
us
and the
know.
Ramsey County sheriffs decided that they were going to take their police officers off of these task force. Right, that's their
It's a
reform.
show of force.
Did
They're
you see
trying
how
to
fast they
intimidate us.
said no longer will we use our officers in these task forces? Right, so there are things that they can do right now, like the statute of limitations, the pretextable stops, the no knock warrants, the body camera. The governor can do that himself right now. They don't need, I mean, he could be, but he's giving his executive powers up on August 1st. That's what he gave up for this bullshit that we got right now. And so I have a bad taste in my mouth for a lot of the people in leadership here, man, because we're negotiating our lives, the lives of our family members. We're negotiating their lives, and they're laughing at us, saying that we don't care about your people dying. We need more police in these communities. And so, hey, man.
I'll say that they also, when the president of the United States came up and spoke, he sent a message to every state governor who was negotiating police accountability legislation when he, as part of his priorities, didn't have any police accountability legislative initiative anywhere. Didn't even talk about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act as part of his initiative. As a matter of fact, he sat over here and talked about giving police departments more money, more funding, without any kinds of checks of accountability, without passing any legislative initiatives, no strings attached for any reforms that will redress what has happened here in Minnesota, and rubber stamped that and pushed it out to the public. And shortly after that, this is where we're at. And I think it's a shame, and I refuse, as I believe the rest of our coalition members refuse, to fall for the banana in the tailpipe. So we have to be out there, and we have to sit over here and fight for what we believe in. And I believe in getting justice for the people who lost their lives to police violence, and I believe in accountability and transparency. And we're in this for the long haul.
So I want to know what's going on over there at the Capitol. I'm hoping that Jaylani can hop on and tell us a thing or two about this business with the police telling you can't be there. What's that all about?
Well, it looked like they were trying to do a show of force, so they came out with a car and drove by, making it look like their usual drive-by. But now they left, and we're still driving around. But we had a couple of police cars go through here. We don't have that many people out here. We only have probably about a dozen people outside right now, and we still have some legislators also just came out. But there's still a big bill that they're discussing right now on the floor. I believe the HHS bill. That's the one they're discussing right now. But just listening to all of you, I just wanted to again appreciate Representative Thompson. You've been a voice of the people, a true voice of the people. And you came in there and they see you as a radical, but Dr. King was a radical. They didn't want to hear Dr. King. They didn't want to hear the people who had to tell the truth, and the truth is important. And so I'm really appreciative of everything you have done. I know you went through a lot. They've called you everything they could possibly call you, in your face and behind closed doors. I know that, but that's why you ran. You ran not to be a politician, but a voice of the people. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the bills that you've helped put together, and I know your heart. You're going to continue to fight and demand that, and I hear that from your voice today and your frustration. So I really appreciate that, and I just want to again, just remind those who are watching right now, those who may watch tomorrow, that we expected this, sadly, but we expected that the state of Minnesota, as the aunt of, or the cousin of Emmett Till says, Deborah Watts, it's Mississippi, so this is a state that claims to be a state that cares about Black people, indigenous people, people of color, minorities, and poor whites. but it does not. It has the worst achievement gap in education, the worst disparities in economics, the worst disparities in jobs, the worst disparities in housing, the worst disparities in almost every single category. The labor that the state makes money on are labor of people of color, also the immigrant community, the Latino community, and the East African and other immigrants who have come here to build a better life, who work in the factories that make millions of dollars and billions of dollars in profit, that are then profiteered of. You can today go to Walmart and Targets. You can go to gas stations. You can go to turkey plants. You can go to manufacturing. You can go to the people who clean the offices. You can go to, many of the jobs on the front line, and it's people of color. It's people who are forced to work 3, 4 jobs to make ends meet. It's people who are then evicted because of who they are. It's people who are denied job opportunities. It's people who are denied. And so when we talk about police accountability, it's a glimpse of the reality that we live in. Tonight's disappointment is only a continuation of the disappointment that many people in the state have felt for a very long time and will continue to feel. The question I think we have to ask ourselves, especially those who are impacted the most and those who are our allies and our accomplices, is when will enough be enough? When will there be actual serious consequences politically, economically, and in other means that politicians in the state of Minnesota cannot do what they did tonight, cannot go behind closed doors and agree to nothing, agree to water down bills, agree to do the least amount. And think about it, if George Floyd was killed somewhere else in the United States, there would be a lot more white people that would agree with this idea that, hey, we did a little bit here on police accountability. We tried. But when we are the state that killed George Floyd, that killed Jamar Clark, that killed Philando Castile, that killed many, many, many people, predominantly Black, brown, indigenous people, when we are the state that has had now this funnel of justice, when the entire world comes here to see what justice looks like in America. I just spoke on a radio station in South Africa, and they were asking about has there changes happened? And I told them the truth. I said, change happened to this country. The people may have awakened, but the politicians have not. And the policies have not fallen behind. And so this is a moment for this state. Whatever we know, there is this moment. And I know right now we're in the middle of a very important historical point. And I just want to say to all of you on this call, on the show right now, many of our volunteers and supporters, we can at least go home tonight and say we are trying. We're doing something. I personally feel the failure because I know that I want to work and bring forth success for our community. And we've tried everything. We've tried the niceness. We've tried, showing up at Melissa Hortman's house, the governor's house, Senator Gazelka's business in Baxter. And we've done everything. We've protested. We've demanded. We've written letters. We've brought petitions. We've done everything. Social media, public media, private media, everything. And yet the results are the same. And we're fighting a legacy of injustice and racism that is embedded in both political parties. And that is why it is not easy, because this work is work that is important, but it's work also that has been blocked for far too long. So tonight is a big night because it's a night for many of us activists and community leaders and families and others, it's a night to reflect on. It's a night to use this moment of failure to be re-energized and to recognize that those who we have been in rooms with, who promised us that change was coming and could not deliver change, that we're not going back into those rooms with the same, maybe they have a plane now that's covering us, I don't know. But yeah, so I think that we can't go back into those rooms with the same way. You know, I think we all have that Minnesota niceness embedded in us somehow, but I think the Minnesota niceness is the problem. It's time to get Minnesota justice, and we didn't get that tonight, and we're going to continue to fight. And I mean it. I always say it at the end of every speech I say or whatever. I mean it by any means necessary. We are going to get this done by any means necessary. And it does not take a lot. It takes a few committed people, and we're going to do that. So I hope many of you will join this fight. I hope many of you will continue to do that as best as you're possible. And I'm more resolved and more committed and more resilient tonight than I've ever been before. And the fight is real, and we're not giving up.
You know, I think we have to tell people too to be watching and paying attention, because we are going to have to call on you to come out and do what, you know, Jaylani's out at the Capitol tonight. It's likely we're going to have bodies at the Capitol on Monday and Tuesday. And it might be long days at the Capitol. Right, Jaylani? It might be long days at the Capitol.
Yes,
you know?
yes, absolutely, Michelle, you're right. And there are a lot of people who really didn't care. They just thought George Floyd was killed. There was a lot of media attention on it. So I'm just going to come out and show my face and then take a picture and then go home. This issue is real. You know, Katie Wright's family right now, Dante Wright, Winston Smith's family, Dolal Eid's family. These are families who've lost their loved ones just right after George Floyd, and many others, you know, and the countless 400 plus names that we have. Do you have that flyer? Here it is. These are all the names. It's in fine in as you can see, someone wrote all the names. This is a big issue. This is not a small issue. And these are just the names they killed. How many are in prison falsely? We just learned from the Travis case that they lied, and that's what they do. Whenever they kill people or in prison, they lie. You know, that's what they do. That's what they do. It's not the first time. It's not the last time. It's not the only time. They cover themselves. And you know, I've said this multiple times. Maya Burrell,
Maya Burrell's an excellent example of how they'll lie to cover their own asses up. You know, somebody in our stream here, or in our the comments, said it's not a sprint. And you know, that's one of my favorite sayings. I say it all the time about this movement. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But you know what? You can only be in the marathon if you show up. You have to put your running shoes on, and you have to come out here, and you have to show up, and you have to do the work. And it's one thing, you know, you were talking about, Jaylani, I think it's important. People coming out for that minute where it's like, oh, it's exciting to be out at the protest, you know, and come out and get your picture made, do a selfie with all your friends at the protest, wearing the cool clothes and all that. Well, when the protest is over, protests are about raising awareness and pressure, but then it's pressure for what? And so when the protest is over, this is where we have to be. In these other places, we have to be at the city council meetings, hollering at them, forcing them, shutting them down if we have to get them to make the changes. We have to be at the legislature. We have to, you know, be hammering on these people's doors, because they're not trying to just give this to us. You know, none of these politicians, you know, with the exception of a few good ones, you know, like John Thompson and, you know, some of the other ones we've worked with, these legislators are not just going to do stuff because it's the right thing to do. They have to be made to do things, because you know what? Their real constituent is the corporate America types and the rich people and all of that kind of stuff. That's who they see their constituency is, not us. So, you know, it does take a lot of pressure. And so, you know, we have to be where, like Jaylani is out there standing there now. He's got a young child, you know, a baby at home, but he's out there, right? We have to be out here doing all of this stuff, and never letting these legislators think that they can go behind these doors and just get away with this stuff.
And and to that point, Michelle, look at the time they're doing this on a Saturday night, in a time knowing that many people are at home or out with family and, you know, having a night out or whatever, right? They know what to do, when to do it. Think about it. This is the bill that everyone has been anticipating, and they're making deals at what time? What time is it right now? 11 or something?
It's after midnight, my friend.
After midnight. There you go. We're Sunday. It's Sunday morning. We got 6 hours before church, some of us, right? Right. So there you go. You know. So yeah, but I to your point, I mean, it's just it's this is why we need to be vigilant. We're going to be vigilant. So go ahead, Tashira. I interrupted you.
Oh, it's okay. I just want to tell you guys, I'm so frustrated right now. It's hurtful. It's really, really hurtful. Um, I try to hold back my tears, um, because our families have been on the calls with these people. Our families are just like pleading with these people, and they go home to their kids, they go home to their family, and ours don't come home. They haven't come home. And that's why we're asking for people to be held accountable for their actions, no matter their title, no matter what uniform they decided to put on for the day. They made a decision to go out the door and hurt another human being. And it's really it's not even. Rena Moran said tonight, I know it's painful. It's excruciating when you hope for something, when you pray for something, when you fight for something, when you beg for something, when you do everything. You do everything. And these people just want to keep giving us crumbs. Crumbs is what they want to keep giving us. But I just want to tell you guys, on behalf of our families, thank you for continuing to be in this fight with us and holding space with us, because we only have a certain limit and amount of strength, you know? This stuff is discouraging. This stuff is, but they do this type of stuff like Mohammed, I think it was Mohammed or John Thompson said tonight, is that they do it on purpose. They did the names on purpose. They chose the bills with the names. So that way, if we say all or nothing and we try to shut it down, then it's like we're going against the families that their names were attached to the bills. So it was strategic. But the only bill that didn't go through that was attached to a family name was a police accountability bill, which was the Kobe Heisler bill, 24 to 48 hours to have the video footages released. They don't want these officers held accountable, and they're doing it by all means necessary. So, like Jelani said, we got to do what we got to do by all means necessary. And tonight would have been a perfect night to have a night protest at that Capitol. And we still can do that. And we're going to have a night protest outside of the governor's mansion, because we're not okay with this. And we're not going to sit back quiet, because when we sit back quiet, that silence is consent. And we're not consenting to this. We're not okay with this. You're going to do some police accountability bills. These people are going to be held accountable for killing people, for destroying families and sabotaging and brutalizing the community. They're going to be held accountable, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And it looks like we have a busy couple of days, so it's still, the bills is not, this omnibus bill is not done and dusted. There's still one more opportunity to make sure that this omnibus bill does not go through. So we're hearing on either Tuesday or Wednesday that there will be a House floor vote on these bills, and we need enough people to actually vote against this bill. So this would be a great time for us to mobilize and let our representatives know that we will not accept this bill, and we need them to vote in that manner. Representative Thompson already said that he's not going to vote for it, and we need to urge other representatives to refuse the passage of this bill by voting no. And and we'll need all of us to come together and mobilize, and we'll be sending out all that information. So please pay attention to any of our Facebook pages for that information in the next couple of days, because we'll need every and single person to make sure that we get some police accountability legislation across the finish line. It's important that we did have a couple of meaningful bills like the no knock warrant, like the Hardell Sherrill Act. But then again, those are not police accountability bills. They do not prevent anybody from dying in the manner that George Floyd died, or does not prevent any of holding any law enforcement accountable. But this is really a reminder and a testament to all of us that the system, the way that it's set up, the people in those positions do not work for us, right? They do not care about us, and it's really up to us to put those matters into our own hands. And this is a night, at least for me, that I will not forget. And this night is not going to be in vain. This is really a lesson for all of us, I think, that in the approaches that we've been taking in the last couple of years, and if we're going to get slapped or spit on the face next time, I really think it's our fault, and we need to come and make sure that we hold everybody accountable for their failures, everybody's accountable for their silence on this matter, and everybody accountable who was complicit in one way or another. And I think we have a pretty clear idea of who those individuals may be, and we have a pretty clear idea in terms of who is been in the way, and we'll make sure that we either get them out of the way, or make sure that we get some folks that will actually that care about Black and brown bodies, that care about really the pain and the trauma that the family is going through, that actually care about doing something about this really state-sanctioned violence that we have seen through the policies that we and even when we were these Republicans do never want to negotiate on their behalf. They would send state agencies, and even when we were talking about the 48-hour bill, the Kobe Heisler bill, they were more concerned about them not being able to comply to the bill because a family member can't fly from so on and so forth within 48 hours, and that's literally one of their excuses, right? So we're talking about pragmatic, very common sense bills, and yet they're not being heard, they're not being passed for really ridiculous reasons, and to be honest with you, because the system and the people that are upholding it do not want to see and do not want to hold police accountable. So we're going to go ahead and get your final remarks as we kind of wrap up here. So go ahead, Jaylani.
Zainab is with me, so she can say a few words, but go ahead while I do that. Anyone else can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead. I think Jonathan wants to make a comment.
Oh yes, my final comment is in the beginning of what I said is that the governor and made a political calculation, and it's time for us to start making some political calculations of our own. And after this legislative session is up, we're going to get into the political session. When you have legislators coming to your doors asking for your vote, and it's time for us to use that space to sit over here and hold these legislators accountable. And if they don't support the legislation satisfactory to you, then you vote their ass out of office. You work on campaigns. I believe that Shakira said that Bonnie Westland is running against Warren Limmer. Call up her campaign and find out how you can support her campaign. Door knock, phone bank, and lit drop, and do everything in your possibility or in your capability to support candidates who truly support police reform legislation. So I would encourage everybody to get involved in this upcoming political process and let your voice be heard, because it matters.
And Zainab, I think we haven't heard any of your comments or your reaction. If you're there, if you can hear us. Oh, we're not able to hear you. No, I think maybe the headphones, maybe. Oh. Yep, I think she dropped off. So, Michelle or Tishira, if you have any final comments to wrap this up.
We're not out of the count, so to speak. We've got things we can still do, including that we are going to be pushing some legislators to make some amendments to this bill, which can happen on the House floor. I think we need to be prepared for that. We need to be prepared to be in the chambers with the legislators, and to be outside the building, and things like that. But you know what? In the end, and this sounds so trite, and I know how ridiculous it sounds. I want to say in the end they work for us, but in reality we know they don't. But in the end, we do have power more than people think we have. So I think that we really do have to, do our best to exercise our power. And if you're not going to do right by us, then what you got to do is you got to be embarrassed. And so I'm all about embarrassing politicians, because I think that there's the two tunes that they dance to is money and embarrassment. They don't want to be embarrassed, and they do want money. So I'm not fixing to give them any money, but I am more than happy to embarrass the hell out of them. So I think calling them out and letting them know, what's going on, that we're not tolerating it, that we know about their trickery. We know how they tried to, stack the families against everyone else. We already know what you're up to, and we're all talking to each other, and you can't pull it off. So I think, doing that, and then being ready to say, look, you've got to do these things or else, and we're going to keep, just blocking you up until you do. I think those are all some tactics that we have to be thinking about, but we can't do those things alone. We need people to be here and to, help us, really show the power of the people, like we always say at our protests, all power to the people. Well, we got to mean all power to the people, we really do have to mean all power to the people. And so we have to get the people out there to take back our power. And that's very important. So listen, keep your ears to the ground, and be ready to jump out. And, we're going to have to jump out when we need to, and so keep paying attention. So we're going to let you know what we need.
And I would say pay attention to the communities against police brutality page, Cares Minnesota page, uh, Minnesota Justice Coalition page, Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence page, Racial Justice Network page. Pay attention to those pages, because that's where the events will be created when we do decide to, unless it's an event that we're not going to post about, just but we'll be putting it through Signal. But other than that, we will be creating these events because I'm even thinking in my head what we can do going next. I think we need to be outside of Warren Limmer's house. When we talk about embarrassment, we talked about going out to Warren Limmer's church. This is someone that we know has been a real life problem. We know that wouldn't give hearings to police accountability bills. We know what this man is about. It's time for him to be exposed. It's time for people to know exactly who he is and what he's doing, and for us to be outside of that governor's mansion. And I always say this: I understand, even like where Winston Smith was killed, I understand that's where someone lost their life, but that's not necessarily the most impactful or strategically thinking place. We have to be outside of the places where the people that can make the changes where they are. We need to go where they are. And where they're at is at the Capitol, and they're at their houses. So we got to go to the Capitol, and we got to go to their houses, and we also got to go over there to the BCA, because those are people that actively cover up murders. So those three places are all happen to be in St. Paul, unfortunately, but those are the places that I call them the hot spots. We got to be making sure that we camping out consistently. I think that, I could be wrong, but I think for the rest of the protesters that we do, if it's not at their homes, it needs to be at the Capitol, the BCA, or the governor's mansion, or their individual homes. From here on out, any action that we do.
And then Zainab, but we haven't gotten your remarks yet. So kind of your initial reaction, and there's been a long day kind of going on today, and kind of like what are you seeing at the Capitol, and what are you feeling today?
Okay, hopefully you guys can see and hear me. Jaylani's pretty tall. But well, at the Capitol right now, there's just a number of state troopers that kind of like showed up, and then like a few helicopters that just kind of been going around. But as far as the events that occurred today and the deal that was made behind closed doors on a Saturday night, that I think was made in like a few minutes. I think the meeting that was supposed to start at 11, like at 11:50, there was a deal made. I think it's evident that all year what we've been saying is, doesn't matter how Republican or a Democrat somebody is. It doesn't matter what party they belong to. They either look at people as human beings and they care about Black lives, or they care about their political seats and take seats. And I think tonight's position is evident of the fact of the leadership of this state showing their cards and showing that they care about saving seats over Black lives. Out of all the bills that were passed, none of them, like everybody has said, was anything to hold law enforcement accountable. Watered down, and we've been meeting with them since January countlessly. We've spoken to Melissa Hortman, we've spoken to Tim Wells, we've spoken to every single person in leadership, and we've said we weren't going to take anything outside of any accountability. And we knew part of the reason why we fought so hard was we knew outside of this year, when budget is on the line, that we will never have a year like this again. We will never have another year where we will be able to negotiate the way that they were negotiating. Part of that was making sure that we were hard on at least the 8 bills that we had, which none of the really good ones that we wanted, that would have held cops accountable, that would have given families the hope of having to hopefully heal and find justice and accountability happen. I think it's incredibly disappointing, but I also want to say we are a 5013C. We cannot endorse candidates. I know Brownie Weston is running, but we cannot endorse candidates as a 5013C. Just want to make that evident. But I think that everybody has seen, every single person and every single lawmaker, and the ones that were fighting for it, John Thompson, Senator Omar Fateh, have all fought alongside us, and we appreciate them. But the ones that didn't, even if they pretended they did and it was on their record, it was on their policy, they did not show up for the people. They did not show up for the community, whether they're from the metro, greater Minnesota, it doesn't matter where they're from. They made those deals behind closed doors, and all they care about, even when they get to this place, all they care about is moving their careers up and getting to a vice chair seat instead of fighting for what's really important. So I think everybody in the state can do what they need to do and mobilize and organize and do the right thing, and put in people that truly care about these laws. And so thank you guys all for being here tonight. That's all for my remarks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to spend with us today. And thanks to everybody that was able to join us today. I know Representative Thompson was here a bit earlier. Jaylani spoke. We had Tashira, we had Michelle, we had Jonathan and Zainab as well. And please be on the lookout. So just to kind of like wrap up today, a deal was struck for the Public Safety Omnibus Bill that did not include any police accountability legislation. And we are all extremely disappointed, and we're providing some reaction to that. But please pay attention to all of our Facebook pages and you know, the other channels that we communicate, so that you are aware of the next kind of steps in terms of what we're going to do and the different planned actions. I think this is a historic failure that is going to be remembered in history. But I think that, you know, we are tougher than the tough times that we're facing right now, and that we will win, we will persevere, and we're going to take this, you know, one challenge at a time. And the next step would be, you know, when this bill faces and starts to head towards the House floor for a vote. So please be on the lookout for kind of next plans, next actions, and we will continue to demand justice for George Floyd, for all the families, and to prevent from state, you know, sanctioned violence to continue to occur in the state of Minnesota. So thank you so much, everybody, for spending your time. Appreciate you all for joining us today, and please be on the lookout for the next, you know, maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see. See y'all.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.